I think we can get started, everyone. Thank you so much for being in another brown bag session today. Um, Today it's a very special session. We normally do a more presentation type. Today we have a more interactive. It's a panel continuing the topic we did last month on urban street design standards. So I hope. Thank you for joining, and I hope you can get the most information from this panel today. We have really exciting, good guests, and if you can please mute your microphones. We're gonna have the opportunity for questions at the end. I'm gonna do a quick informations before this panel, and all our brown bag sessions are eligible for AICP certification maintenance credits. Here are the codes. We're gonna share them with all the attendees at the end of the session. Today's panel is also eligible for 1 credit that goes towards your certification. If you want a screenshot, or as I said, I'm gonna just share it with you at the end. A quick information: our next session will be on June 9th. This time we will be talking about trails as a common facility in planning and development. We will our folks at parks will be discussing the trail guidelines and a new app that they've been developing, a Trail Finder app that is really, really interesting. So please join us next month on June 9th. Registration will open tomorrow at noon. If you are registered in our mailing list, you will receive the email inviting you to that session. With that, I'm quickly gonna mention our panel today is the members of our panel today is Crystal Hancock, which will be the moderator. She's our assistant division chief for the transportation section at the planning department. Our first panelist is Evan Tenenbaum. He is the deputy project manager for the Go Prince George Master Plan, a transportation master plan at the planning department. We have from DPI, or the Department of Permitting and Inspections and Enforcement, we have Rene Lord Atibor. He is the chief engineer at Side Road Plan Review Division. And from the Department of Public Works and Transportation, we have Herb Beckert, who is, sorry, Herb, there is a typo here. That's not his last name. He's not Development Standards. It's just Herb Beckert. He's the chief of Highway and Bridge Design Division. With that, Crystal, whenever you're ready, you can take it over. I'm going to ask our panelists to please turn on their cameras and microphones. And Crystal, whenever you're ready, please introduce our guests.
Good morning, good afternoon, sorry everyone. I wanted to make sure I was all set up, and I thought you were stealing my thunder, so thank you, Natalia. So thank you everybody for joining us today. We have a dynamic panel up to discuss our urban street design standards and how we place them into action. First, I wanted to start with Evan Tenenbaum. I just want to read a few little bios to let you know that we're not dealing with any slouches here. These are experts in the field. So Evan is a transportation planner at the Prince George's County Planning Department. He has been with the commission for almost 3.5 years and has also served. He also brings some experience from Las Vegas, Nevada, not just slot machines, but also Durham, North Carolina. He focuses a lot on long-range transportation issues, which Natalia already mentioned. He's dealing a lot with Go Prince George's as our deputy or co-project manager. He also works with GIS and reviews applications for the mandatory referral process. Evan also has a bachelor's in urban studies and geography, as well as a master's in community and regional planning from the University of Texas at Austin. He's also a member of the AICP, and outside of work, you can catch him riding around on his bike and trying out a new barbecue joint or lounging at one of the local basketball games. So thank you again, Evan. Next, we have Rene Lord Atibor. He is one of 2 chief engineers with the Site Road Plan Division at the Department of Public Department of Permits Inspection and Enforcement, otherwise known as DPI. So if you hear some acronyms thrown around, please just say, hey, put in a chat, and we'll go ahead and respond to you. Renee is a transportation professional with experience in traffic and transportation engineering, development review, and public infrastructure coordination. He's worked extensively with public sectors, supporting review and implementation of roadway, site development, and transportation planning projects. In Renee's role, he's responsible for evaluating engineering plans and compliance with applicable standards and regulations, and coordinating across agencies to facilitate safe and efficient project delivery. Renee has contributed to a wide range of projects involving urban street design, right-of-way improvements, and multimodal transportation considerations. And Renee also he does what he loves, because he also enjoys riding his road bike and is a member of various cycling communities in Maryland. So he is absolutely in favor of bike lanes of all kinds. Finally, our most passionate panelist, I would say, is Irv Beckert. He's currently the Chief of Highway and Bridge Design Division at the Prince George's County Department of Public Works and Transportation. Sometimes you may hear us referred to as DPW&T, where he manages a team programming, planning, and design of county roads, bridges, and drainage infrastructure projects. Irv has been with the county government for the past 26 years. Prior to his employment with the county, he worked as a design engineer for Greenhorn O'Mara, Wilbur Smith Associates, and for Mars Food Company in Russia. So Irv is a registered professional engineer in the state of Maryland. He also has an undergraduate degree in civil engineering from the University of Houston, another undergraduate degree in international relations from Drexel, and a master's in public policy from the University of Maryland, College Park. He's also a graduate of the Prince George's Leadership Program and a member of ASCE, or American Society of Civil Engineers. So we wanted to start with that. Again, give everybody a heads up on our group and how engaged they are in what they do, as well as the community. So I wanted to go ahead and just have everybody say hello, and then we'll get into our panel discussion, because we only have 45 minutes. Okay, so Evan, you give a wave. Renee, you give a wave, and then Irv, you give a wave. So thank you again, everybody. So we're getting right into when do responsibilities transition to another agency? So Irv, I'm gonna start with you on number one. I'm just gonna kind of go through so you guys don't know who I'm picking on first, but Irv.
Sure. Okay, so real quickly, obviously Park and Planning is the lead in the planning process. DPI is the lead in the permit process. And of course, folks, I should always say hello. Thank you for inviting me to join this panel. I really appreciate this invitation. I think it'll be a very interesting discussion. But just to carry through, at what stage does my agency take the lead? What is our role in implementing the standards? Well, we are the owner-operator agency. So back in 2017, my counterpart, Liz Miller, the Division Chief of Planning and Engineering Services, her team did that initial draft that was then published. There was, in July of 2023, proposed legislation from the council to revise the standards. We met with council extensively on this, and we were charged with doing a revision to the standards and we started work on that as promised in November of 2023. We concluded that effort in March of 2024. We had weekly technical sessions. We included DPW&T staff, DPI staff, DOE staff, and we also included Park and Planning staff in that weekly technical session review. We had monthly update sessions that included development team representatives, multimodal smart growth advocacy groups, the bicycle user organizations, utility companies, the Maryland Department of Transportation, municipal governments, our own office at the county executive, and environmental advocacy groups. So we provided updates to them, highlighting the changes that were being made. We then secured leadership approval of the document in April of 2024, and then we published it in May of 2024. So that's our role. That's what we did.
All right. Thanks, Irv. Renee, can
Sure.
you go ahead and start?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. So as Irv stated, the role during the permitting and concept stage of implementing the urban street design standards for development related cases. DPW&T, of course, Irv said they take the lead in the CIP project. So when developers submit their plans during the permitted and concept stage, DPI reviews the detailed plans for compliance to the urban street design standards, AASHTO, and other county codes and regulation and requirements. This involves reviewing of the geometric grades, the storm drain, MOT traffic, and all detailed review. My specific role as the chief engineer, I have to make sure whatever is in the urban street design standard, whether it's a concept stage where we're reviewing overarching concept level, big ticket item level design criteria is implemented at the concept stage before, of course, park and planning accepts the case. So that's my role. We evaluate the code, county standards, AASHTO standards as part of the concept and entitlement review process. We coordinate extensively with park and planning and DPW&T as part of the entitlement and concept stage. So even though we take the lead in the concept and permitting stage, it doesn't end with DPI. It's extensive coordination. But once the detailed plans are being reviewed, that's when we actually start reviewing it based on what we have coordinated with park and planning and DPW&T. Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. Evan, you go ahead.
Thank you, Crystal, and thank you for having me on this panel. Excited to talk about the urban street design standards and how the planning department plays a vital role into ensuring that we are building urban street design standards. As previously mentioned, we as the commission were part of the technical working group in developing the initial and then the updated urban street design standards under leadership through DPW&T. Our seat at the table is focused on ensuring that our facility recommendations are speaking to our comprehensive plan, which is Plan 2030, their goals of transportation and mobility, including supporting proposed development patterns, the use of completing green streets, improving safety in the transportation network for all modes. Our responsibilities are also in the lead in our Master Plan of Transportation, Go Prince George's, where we are designated specific locations within the county for both existing and new roadways to recommend construction or reconstruction for inclusion of urban street design standards. And we do that in coordination with those who are building and maintaining it, like DPW&T, and those who are permitting conditioning it, like DPI, and additionally those who are going to be making the land use changes within the county, mostly the developers within that we work with hand in hand. So that's our role. We're kind of all encompassing, both on the long range and more on the development review side.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Evan. So next, can we go ahead and we're going to get started on question number 2. Question number 2 is, how does your agency measure success when it comes to urban street design standards, and what metrics or feedback loops are in place to ensure continuous improvement? And for everyone's listening, I have placed the urban street design standards link in the chat. So Renee, if we can go ahead and get started with you.
Thank you. Measuring for DPI and personally for me, anytime we can accommodate bicyclists, micromobility, and pedestrians on our roadway through the entitlement and permitting process, it's a success. It's a success to me. Anytime we're able to implement complete streets techniques outside the TOD and centers, it's a success to us. Some of the measuring tools for success is how we can effectively balance safety, accessibility, constructability, maintenance for DPW&T, while supporting the county's long-term Vision Zero goals destiny through the urban street design standards. Some of the matrices we use is making sure we can safely accommodate all road users and transit users as well as motorists, and being able to reduce operational and safety conflicts while implementing the urban street design standards. Make sure we're incorporating complete streets principles and all the county codes, making sure construction is feasible within the existing right of way, which is very critical to make sure some of the constraints that we're able to implement urban street design standards within the right of way. Making sure we're reducing redesign during the concept, entitlement process, and permitting stage. Some of the feedback loops that we're going to consider now and in the future is making sure we continue coordination with internal agencies and stakeholders, making sure we're getting public feedback as part of the entitlement or other citizen complaints we receive within the subdivisions, monitoring design exceptions if there are any, and making sure it's carried through the whole process before construction begins. And then if there are any updates with any of the code standards outside of the counties, including the urban street designs, if there are any updates, we want to circle back and make sure we're implementing that in the urban street design. And when I said in the future, meaning because we haven't constructed any of the urban street design standards on our roadways now as part of the development related project. In the future, we want to get feedback from our inspections office, the construction side as well, and DPW&T if they experience any challenges, because implementing some of the urban street design standards on existing roads becomes challenging as well. Thank you.
Right, I would agree with that. So Renee, are we close to permitting our first urban street design standard on a county roadway?
Yeah, we've permitted one as
Okay.
far as I could remember, but we have a bunch that are in the permitting stage that we're reviewing. We're reviewing now. Yeah, permitting and concept stage. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So Evan, what comments do you have about any measures of success?
Yeah, sure. So we as the planning department, I mentioned previously, we have a master plan of transportation. It's in draft form right now. So we're still doing some changes here and there, but we do contain within the master plan of transportation some performance metrics that would lead us towards success. So when we're describing the roads that we would like to be built or to be rebuilt to urban street design standards, we kind of have a quantitative measure of what we want to aim for. We've identified about 150 miles of streets within the county that we would want to be constructed or reconstructed to those standards. Depending on how we would coordinate with our operating agencies and developers, we would want to build out about a little bit under 6 miles per year to ultimately ensure that 100% of the roads that are within our Plan 2035 designated centers, and they're specifically signify where those locations are. A lot of our transit centers, a lot of our activity centers near the university, the Innovation District, and other locations within the county. So 100% of those roads in those areas, and then 75% of other streets that we recommend for conversion in Go Prince George's to eventually be converted over the next 10 to 25 years after the plan is adopted. Qualitatively, we would also like for our new or reconstructed streets to actually deliver on our ultimate Plan 2035 goals, which could include safer crossings, better access to transit, more comfortable walking and biking conditions, and streetscapes that will attract investment. And as ways to maintain feedback loops, we want to do that with our developers, our community members, and the internal review we have with our operating agencies to determine if we need to refine standards in the future to better match what our ultimate performance goals or the metrics that we would want to provide for converting our roadways would be. So that's what we see on our side.
Oh, thanks, Evan. Irv, you're up next. I'm busy having a whole conversation on mute, so thank you.
No worries. All right. So from DPW&T's perspective, just given again that we're the owner-operator of the county public right-of-way, we, number one, always want to promote public safety. That's our number one goal. Every project that we deliver, its number one goal is to improve safety. So therefore, in the guise of our capital improvement program, any project that happens to fall within the confines of a designated zone that would require the urban design street standards, our goal is to deliver that project efficiently, effectively, and comply with the standards. It's challenging, but it's something that we know is needed and that we have to do. We are finalizing our Vision Zero action plan this year, and that's actually identifying the road corridors that will be our focus for enhancing safety for all modes, for pedestrians, for bicyclists, transit users, and of course, vehicular operators. We've developed this high-risk network. The risk attributes are used in the scoring. Certainly not limited to this, or the functional classification, the speed limit, the roadway type, presence of roadway overhead lighting, otherwise, and then opportunities for walking and biking. So in the context of urban street design standards, we do our high-risk network first, and that's where we put our focus. But as it turns out, there will be corridors, I'm certain, where the urban street design standards will kick in. But I always want to put safety first and foremost. We have a limited budget. That's where we focus our investments, and that's we'll always comply with the standards of the day. So some examples: we've got a project on Campus Drive between Kenilworth Avenue and River Road, right by the College Park Metro. So we've just worked up a concept for that. That is a roadway where the urban design street standards will kick in. That is subject to funding availability. We've submitted for a request for congressionally designated funding for that. And then the Largo Area Road CIP roadway project, that's for McCormick Drive, that's for Lotsford Road. We've worked up a nice concept for that as well. Again, that's entirely dependent on the availability of funding right now in this upcoming fiscal year. We have been denied funding for that, but we're hopeful that there will be some advocacy for that project, because I think it will be very transformative, and that would certainly comply with the urban street design standards in implementation. So again, safety is our first foremost goal, but we certainly will always comply with the standards of the day.
Okay. Nope. I totally agree with all of the comments that you've mentioned, Irv, yes. Question is, what challenges do you anticipate? I know that there are some of the concerns that Renee, you spoke of, and Irv, you mentioned, is that what challenges, and I'm sorry, Evan, you too, what challenges do you anticipate during implementation? A lot of them are made ones that we don't even really know about, and what actions can be taken in the likelihood of success. So some of this has already been answered, and if you're okay with us just moving on to the next question, I'm good with that too. So yeah.
Crystal, could I make a really quick statement here on this one? Because
sure.
I want to, here we have an opportunity to stress to the attendees, folks, look at page 5 of the Urban Street Design Standards. The paragraph that is absolutely no flexibility, and this is driven by code. I want you all to understand this. Under no circumstances shall any bicycle, pedestrian, or transit facility or accommodation required by the Urban Street Design Standards be reduced or eliminated, except as permitted by one of the specific urban street design standards or as authorized in the 6 enumerated alternatives described above. They describe a few ways that you can deviate, but please read that. It is quite inflexible. So that's the way the code is written. You need to understand that and comply with that. I think it's exceedingly difficult in certain design scenarios to accomplish that. So just read it, understand it, but understand when it's written in that fashion, there's no waiver process. There's no agency level, whether it be through DPI. If it was referred to us, we would have to simply say, no, it's not. There's no deviation allowed. So just understand that it's quite challenging from a designer's perspective, whether you're an engineer or a planner. So just please do refer to that. Again, it's page 5 of the standards.
Thank you for that reminder, Irv. Yep. Thank you.
Sure.
Evan, you want to start, or we think we good with that? Are we ready to move on to the next question? Because
I guess I would just like to say that one of the key partners in development or the implementation of the urban street design standards are the people who are going to be building the types of land use that we were desiring near these streets. And so a lot of it is the conversations we're going to have with developers and how we are implementing these facilities. That does kind of lead to an inherent piecemeal nature of the development of these standards. If there's a specific roadway that isn't in a capital improvement project, it is going to have a lot of conversations, early engagement with developers to avoid delays and strong internal alignment, so we can enforce our standards with the shared understanding that multimodal accommodations are not optional, as Irv mentioned before.
Okay, Renee, you have anything? Are you good with?
I'll just like to add, Irv has relayed one of our biggest challenges, but I'd like to also add as part of the design and permitting process, transitioning from the existing road to the developer's frontage and then outside the development's frontage. How do we incorporate the urban street design standards on the type of road when a developer has to do half of that road? They're not required to do the entire full road. So the design of that road, when a developer is in the middle of the road, how do we make sure we're transitioning safely for all modes? And how do we make sure that urban street design standards is implemented not only now, but also for the developer or the parcel opposite the developer we're designing for? That's our major I should say challenge, I would say, if I want to summarize it. There are other challenges, but that's the major one. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So let's move on to our next question. So here's a question for us. So the urban street design standards often need to be both consistent and adaptable, which we learned is not always the case. Where do you draw the line between enforcing uniform standards and allowing flexibility for unique conditions or innovative design solutions? So some of that relays back to the last question where we talked that there is no flexibility, which you mentioned, Irv. So any flexibility that we thought we could have as a part of this project is not necessarily what we appear to have. Is that correct? Is that correct, Irv, based on your comments, and Renee?
Yeah, I would agree with that generally. For, again, quoting page 5, there's a reference to the Council Bill 69-2023, and it does state the requirements of the county urban street design standards may only be adjusted as is minimally necessary to address existing geotechnical, approved development, or environmental constraints and/or existing development that inhibits the construction of the urban streets to its required build out. So there is some understanding of context there. So while it's quite constraining, it is good to know that at least with those kind of considerations in mind, there is some flexibility. We always say good engineering rationale should be applied to any design. So if you're deviating, you got to provide a rationale that considers safety, first and foremost, long-term maintenance, service life, and of course, economic development. So those kind of things I think it does give the agencies some reasonable understanding and flexibility.
Okay. All right. So let's just jump into the next question. So in that way, we have a little more time to talk through that response, which I think will be good for us too. So what advice do the three of you have to give developers, community members, and other stakeholders trying to navigate the urban street design process standards, the urban street design standards process? Evan, let's go with you first, and then we'll jump back through.
Sure. As Irv mentioned, there is a little bit more rigid because these standards are part of the code. Depending on some specific geotechnical or environmental restraints, that's something we could look at towards flexibility. I think is to have just to be heavily involved in the comment and with the permitting agencies from the beginning to understand the most information that there's possible. I apologize if I'm having any technical issues or anything.
You are. You're frozen.
But
okay, you hold that thought, Evan. You hold that thought. Renee, you go ahead next.
I would strongly agree with Evan. Coordination for developers is key to being able to implement their plan during the concept stage and throughout the entitlement and permitting stage. So it's very important, early coordination with DPI, DPW&T, Parks and Recs, Park and Planning is started early. For community members, HOA associations and civic associations, you want to be involved during the entitlement process in the beginning so your voice is heard. Because once the board approves the case, conditions are drafted, whatever you may want to be implemented outside of what has been approved or condition will be very difficult for DPI to implement. Other stakeholders, I would say let's continue to coordinate because that's what brings success to implementing the urban street design standards. Thank you.
Well stated, Renee. Irv?
All right. I would always get familiar with the sections that are available. What we did in this go around when we revised the manual, we came up with many additional typical sections that provide that multimodality, but they also recognize the constraints of some sites. So you'll notice we developed sections with a reduced number of lanes where it's appropriate, where traffic engineering supports that. We also looked at a variety of ways of providing pedestrian and bike facilities that's either shared use paths or a separated bike facility that's off the road or a protected bike facility that's on the road. We also, while I did say there's a lot of inflexibility in the new revision, the one bit of flexibility that exists is in those areas like green spaces that when you find that it's appropriate, and again, it's always a context-driven decision that you need to make. When green spaces can flex, they can either grow larger or grow smaller. Consider looking at that as an opportunity to provide your additional needed facility when you're running out of right-of-way space. Because simply put, the right-of-ways that are available out there in areas where urban street design standards are required, they are highly limiting. You actually have physical buildings that are occupying space where a section would require expansion of the roadway system. So you have really hard and fast constraints, but if you look at the right section, and I love the neighborhood connector section, we wrote 6 different sections for that.
My name is Andrew.
I would consider using those.
And then
Oh, I'm hearing some background.
Hey, Andrew, if we can get you to mute your phone.
Approval for.
Andrew.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks.
And then finally, the mixed-use boulevard, which is has been historically a very typical section to implement. We came up with some additional sections which are far more realistic, but they still provide that excellent multimodality that we want out of these sections. So please look at those sections, lean on the ones that work the best. And I couldn't agree more with Renee and with Evan. If you engage with park and planning and DPI early, you can lock in a section that makes the most sense, that'll work for us ultimately as the owner operator, transitions well. And I think you can come up with a design that's realistic and implementable.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So here we are. This is our last question for you guys, but then we'll have like a closing and then we'll open up for questions and answers. So our last hard question is, what is one priority each of your agencies is focusing on in the next few years to improve street design outcomes in the county? Renee, let's start with you first.
All right, this was the most difficult question for me because we had to pick one.
Yes.
However, the overarching agency, DPI's agency, is to make sure that we are adopting and implementing DPW&T's Vision Zero plan. While doing that, we want to make sure that all roads are accommodated for all modes of traffic, particularly the residential roadways, right? The major collector arterials and collector roads, typically, we can accommodate cyclists, micromobility through whatever type of accommodation, be it separated bike lanes, sharrow, signs, whatever. However, the residential roadways have been our challenge, but we want to make sure that in order to be successful in the Vision Zero plan, our goal at DPI is to make sure we are regulating the residential roadways with appropriate pavement markings and signage. So whenever we have issues, the police could enforce those regulated bicycle accommodation in residential neighborhoods. So that's the major goal for DPI.
Okay, perfect. Irv, what you got?
Okay. So once again, public safety. That's always our principal goal. So the one priority of our agency over the next few years is to implement projects from our Vision Zero action plan. We have designed, again, the high-risk network. This is actually building on the high injury network that the state had developed. We've added to that scoring and elements of it that are really much more local government sensitive. Again, the classification, the speed limit, the road type, we're much more concerned about our lower volume roadways being safer than what they are. We have far too many pedestrian crashes in this county. We have far too many vehicular crashes. We can, while you can't engineer yourself out of everything, we can at least try and do a better job. And that's absolutely our goal. And I find that it really works in line with the goals of the urban street design standards. Because if you think about it, the urban street design standards are multimodal in nature. And the greater that you expand on these variety of modes, the safer your road network. Now, you do have conflict zones. You have to address those. You do have, now you've got sometimes pedestrians and bicycles users may not share the space as well as you'd like them to, or vehicles and bicyclists and transit operators and vehicle operators. But these systems, when implemented, improve the way that those modes work together. They improve the overall safety functioning. So I really love the urban street design standards from not only a economic development, multimodal perspective, but really principally a safety perspective. So it really does help us meet our priority.
Correct. Great. Evan?
Thanks, Crystal, and apologize for any and all technical errors that I've had in the last 5-10 minutes. I think for us, the player, really our goal is to match match the ultimate goals of our DPWT and DPI partners for safety and transportation, and matching that to our ultimate through Plan 2035 through these designated centers and priority growth areas to equip those with the facilities for transportation facilities that are in those areas. So when we were drafting up the master plan of transportation, that was one of the things that we really wanted to emphasize is how do we categorize these roads and street segments to make the proper recommendations for multimodal facilities in these areas. After this, we looked at hundreds of streets in the county to apply these standards appropriately in our centers and activity centers and transit areas. And what that will do is when the plan is adopted, it will dictate that towards both our operating agencies and our developers as to the appropriate treatment for these streets, either through new construction or through reconstruction. It lays out the code pretty well in that regards. So a lot of our priority is ensuring that our future partners are adopting well to what we have in our functional master plan.
Okay, great. Thank you. Guys, we made it. We're down to closing remarks from each panelist, and I'm going to give you both, all three of you, 2 minutes each, because I know you guys are very passionate about this, but we have lots of questions that we need to get to. And remember, I have a 1 o'clock meeting. So the final question or final comment is, what closing remarks do you have or would you like to leave our brown bag participants with today? So Irv, I'm going to get you started.
Okay, so folks, I'll have one thing to say, and that is, if you have challenges with the standards, and again, take the time first to understand them, but if you have challenges, remember some of this is embedded in law. We live in a democracy, everybody. So if you have a challenge with it, then, and it is legally tied, you really should speak to legislatures. You should speak to those folks that make the laws. If you have a challenge, make it clear. And again, you have to have a reasonable position for consideration, in my opinion. But I would recommend that you reach out to your legislator if you cannot find any way of accommodating your particular project with the standards.
Thank you, Irv. But the one thing I do want to mention is that our staff, as well as DPI and DPW&T staff, are available to listen to whatever concerns people may have to see if there is kind of a workaround, something that we can do to sort of help you. Or if not, you know, we can move on. We can direct you to the path of who may be able to help. Would you agree with that, Irv?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, always
Perfect.
start with the agencies that are there to support you.
For sure. Renee?
All right. Thank you, Crystal, again. And once again, thank you for making me be part of this panel. What I'll say as a closing remark is adapting DPW&T's Vision Zero plan is essential to safety on our roadways, and DPI's goal in enforcing and implementing the urban street design standards, making sure that all modes are accommodated on our roads. As such, the review process for us DPI is critical as part of the scoping and review of the TIAs. It's very essential. That being said, I think all of us, our role as engineers and planners, community stakeholders, council members, play an integral part in making sure that the urban street design standards are implemented effectively and safe. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Renee. Evan, final thought?
Yeah, thank you for Crystal for having me on. I really believe in the idea of the urban street design standards. For when we design streets that are attractive, safe, and multimodal, we are creating places where people want to live, work, recreate, and shop as ways to support vibrant neighborhoods and give people real transportation choices. This is a powerful tool for shaping economic outcomes and quality of life. Yep. Also, on the macro level, to our economic development as a county, we need to compete economically with our neighbors in the region. Something we've definitely fallen behind on our amount or quality of our complete and green streets within the county. So this helps us look beyond vehicular throughput to create attractive streetscapes that are essential to competitiveness for many to invest in our county. And these standards are designed to help deliver that future with consistent implementation and strong partnerships. We can build a street network that truly reflects our aspirations for the county.
All right. Thanks, Evan. So next we'll go to questions. So we have a whole bunch of them. So I just need you to be as succinct as possible. So the first one that I see, of course, I put in the wrong urban street design standards. I put in the 2017 ones. And I was corrected. We should be using the 2024 standards, not the 2017 ones that I posted in there. The updated standards are listed in the chat. So my apologies. It was a multitasking fail. So yeah, it happens. So the very first question we have is, Irv, do you oversee the pedestrian bridges as well? I have a specific concern for the one in Glass Manor.
So folks, I saw that. Just email me a specific location.
Perfect.
I would give me a screenshot. We don't maintain pedestrian bridges outside of the public right of way, with the only exception being a few that cross over our county maintained drainage channels, but the vast majority of pedestrian bridges are not maintained by DPW&T.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Next, we have another question is there any accessible data on how these bike lanes have addressed safety concerns and slowing of traffic on all current locations? I am unaware of anything, but I defer to you guys if you know, or if you're familiar with anything. Or maybe we can go back and take a look at it to make sure I'm speaking correctly, because I could absolutely be wrong, and that would not be the first time.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Nope. Folks, I would just offer, this is Veronica Davila asking the question. Veronica, I would recommend that you look at the available research, from AASHTO, from NACTO, on what has been, what underlies the engineering guidance and requirements for the way bike lanes are configured. I think some of it does apply to, some common sense engineering. If you provide safe buffers, you would seem to just naturally be protecting the bicyclist. If you're offsetting a pedestrian facility from that vehicle, and it's sometimes by physical separation, by vertical separation, that should logically lead you to believe that it's safer. But certainly, we live in a world of guidelines and standards, but those are underlined by underlying research from FHWA, again, from ASH. I would check those sources.
All right, perfect. Thank you. The other comment I have is from Mary Cook. She said, thanks for the heads up about the strict compliance to the standards. Do you make recommendations for traffic safety, example, traffic lights, roundabouts, etc.? I'm thinking as it references some of the urban street design standards.
I will defer to DeFi.
Yes and no, because when I say yes, because when we're reviewing the TIAs and we determine an intersection that is within the TOD or center requires a signal to be installed, the applicant will be required to do a signal warrant study and install it if it is warranted as part of the TIA review. So as part of the concept level urban street design application, if that section is not at a signalized intersection or it's not fronting a developer's roadway, we cannot recommend a signal to be installed, or have them do a signal warrant study if it passes the entitlement review process. So it all depends on where as part of the development review process, where the developer is and if they're required to do a signal warrant study or not. I hope I answered the question.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Renee. Next, we have a note from Kim Sesko, and I do apologize if I butcher anyone's name. I'm going to say that in advance. What role does community engagement play in urban street design, especially as it affects their neighborhoods? I think to start, I think Renee, you touched on it a little bit, and you guys can jump right in. During the development process early on, if residents or the community speaks out about the development and the concerns that they may have, that can start the process. But Renee, Irv, Evan, please don't let me speak on your behalf.
Sure, I can respond real quickly to our projects.
Okay.
We have we have on our CIP projects, we always have public information sessions on our projects, making folks, particularly the community directly impacted, those at front, those that surround. We cast a pretty wide net when we notify people about our projects. And for those projects which are federally funded, it is required by NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act, that we have documented public information sessions. And most importantly, when people have questions about our projects, we have a presence on the web whereby we state the project manager's name. I always recommend folks to contact my project manager. And I think those one-on-one discussions are particularly helpful and insightful. So we're always responsive to those.
Yeah, I think State Highway has the same ethos, because they also have their project managers listed in terms of questions that people may have. I definitely recommend reaching out to them also. Renee, Evan, you guys have anything to add to that, or not so much?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it, Crystal. I would say signing up on Park and Planning's website to receive all entitlement review PPS, DSB, ADQ cases, so you determine if it's within your neighborhood or not. That's the only way you're going to find out if these cases are being heard by the board, when it is. And once you find that out, you get involved at the early stage. There are emails there. You can submit your email to ask whatever question. So it's important you get involved when the case is being heard by the board. You can sign up to come for meetings and get your case heard by the board as well. Thank you.
That would be a person of interest process in the Park and Planning. We can go ahead and add that also. Evan, you have anything? I know we have 5 minutes left.
I was going to say, Renee, I second Renee's comments. We're heavily involved when we have, a developer come in and we have a project. And so we're making our recommendations. So the step for public engagement would be at that process during the planning board process. So definitely look on our website for ways you can find out about all the projects going on in your neighborhood. And again, more on the long range side, when we have functional master plans or any other small area plans where maybe there may be some transportation or land use recommendations that are to be made in your community to be held in the process of when we're developing these plans, so that we know a lot better what the community's goals and aspirations are for these types of facilities that are going to be recommended within their community.
Right. Perfect. Thank you, Evan. The next question we have is from Jacob Taylor, who says,
Crystal,
one of the main...
Sorry, if I can interject, just for everyone's information, we also have every other Friday, the commission, DPI, other agencies meet at what we call SDRC, which is the Subdivision Development Review Committee. Those are streamlined live for everyone. So, and if you have interest in a specific project, that project might be reviewed in that committee that Friday, and all the agencies are there ready to present comments on the specific issue on the project. So normally Renee is there and other folks at other agencies, which is a way where you can be informed and participate. You cannot participate as a member of the public, but you can be informed. So thank you.
Thank you. So when we send everything out, we can just send them a link to listen. Okay. Yeah, we'll have a bunch of things to send out as a link for everybody. So thank you. So Jacob said one of the major challenges we face in Howard County is implementing our complete streets. Typical sections is land acquisition and capital project retrofit situations. Many of the typical sections require wider right-of-way footprint than what is available, which requires creativity in design and continual engagement with the community to get buy-in. Yep, I would absolutely agree with you, Jacob. And I'm kind of rushing through these a little because we do have a time constraint. So our next question is from Daryl K. Mitchell. It says, what considerations, if any, has been made for the USDS for meeting the required stormwater management? Are often green space provided in sections are insufficient to meet ESDV to the MEP without looking at areas outside of the public right of way?
So my advice, folks, is yes, that's obviously true. The sections are very tight. The green space where you would normally incorporate something like a grass bioswale, it's incredibly tight to place that. There is a section, the neighborhood connector section, which shows a much wider green space area for the incorporation of grass bioswale, maybe even microbial retention. But being realistic, you're very rarely going to have that right of way to place that kind of facility. You're going to have to consider on-site facilities because that's what I have to do on my projects. I very rarely am able to accommodate the SD to MEP in the county public right of way. It's just too tight. So we build elsewhere. We ride credits. We develop credits. We ride those credits. Again, I think that's the way things have to go when you're working in urban zones. You've got to look at other on-site solutions.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Irv. So what we have next is Natalia has the credit information for your AICP. After that, Irv has put his contact information in this chat. What we will do is have all of the panelists, when Natalia sends out the summary, we can send out the contact information for everyone who's located on our panel. One of Jacob, I think it was Jacob who said to add retrofitting existing older open section roadways can be a challenge as you tend to run into more utility conflicts at the proposed curb line, which we totally agree with. Next, we have a question. The residents of Owens Road, Wheeler Road, and Kennebec Street corridors are united in our commitment to safer streets for all users, drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, seniors, and people with disabilities. We support the county's Vision Green goals and believe deeply in the safe system approach. However, we are increasingly concerned that the current implementation strategies do not adequately address the realities of our aging collector roads and the volume of cut-through traffic of our live safety concerns for long-standing residents. There's no current information tracking this. How often are these studies conducted, and for new signalized intersections? How does the community request? So that is separate and offline. If you, Veronica, if you can put your contact information, if you can send that to Natalia or whoever sent you this, we can go ahead and follow up on your concern. And I do apologize to everyone, but I do have a hard stop at 1 p.m. I do have another meeting. What we can do is answer any additional questions that are in the chat, and we will follow up on the items that we've mentioned. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your moderator. Thank you so much to our panelists, Irv Becker, Renee Lord Attivor, and Evan Tenenbaum. Thank you again so much for being a part of this process. Thank you everyone for attending our brown bag. If there are additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Please have a great day and a great afternoon. Yes.
Crystal, one really quick thing, and please, you have a good day, folks. But if you have questions for DPW&T that were not answered at today's session, I put the note in there. Email us after this if you've not gotten a response. Again, you need to email me, and then we'll respond in kind. But please do email and be specific with your question, and we'll be responsive in kind.
Right. So that's why Natalia is going to send out this additional information for everybody. Or so if there are questions that people can definitely reach out to us so that we can respond to any questions that they have. Anything else from anybody?
No, I just wanted to thank again for our beautiful moderator. You can go if you need to, and our presenters. Thank you for your time. I appreciate for taking time of your daily busy work schedules. And for our participants, thank you so much. I'll see you again on June 9th. Don't forget to start registering next week for our next breakfast section. And have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.